Hello and welcome. I'm Steve Damasco, the Grand Master of Steve Damasco Sheldon Studios and the founder of the Strength and Honor Foundation. Today the show is going to be in two parts. Hopefully I'll have enough time to get through it all. Again, as they say, viewer discretion is advised, especially when I start talking about terrorism. Obviously it's a big subject today on many levels, and I've got some information for you, and again, it's going to be in two parts. The first part is about education, which is a subject of mine all the time, often on this show. So I want to tell you what happened. Okay, some years ago when I was a spokesperson for the President of the United States on education and school violence and a couple of other subjects, the governor of Connecticut had appointed me to go in and try to basically create programs for kids that were in YDC. YDC in Connecticut is the prison for kids. Okay, you have to be pretty much of a repeat offender and a pretty bad kid to be actually be put in YDC, because YDC, unlike a state prison, okay, they're underage and they have to be educated just like kids in school. It's a federal law. So in other words, not only do they have to house these kids and feed them and counsel them, they have to educate them. They have a full educational facility like a school right inside YDC. So having said that, Governor paid me a lot of money to do this for 20 hours a week. Of course, I was going to put in more hours than that. And I was sent in. I had an office there right in the prison for kids. And my job was to really create some sort of educational system beyond what they already had to help these kids, because they don't really come out and do anything of any greatness. Most of them wind up back in YDC again, and then they usually wind up in prison as adults. So my goal was to be able to do something that would really make a significant difference in their lives and hopefully inspire them to do better things with their life once they get out. So the president of the AFL-CIO union in Connecticut, the president of the union had seen me speak before and asked me to be the keynote speaker at their state conference some years ago. And it was all the trades, you know, all the union trades, the carpentry, the electrical, the plumbing, all those type of trades, okay? Again, I don't know, I can't remember all of them because it's not my forte. As I told you before, my wife is the one that has the toolbox, not me. Having said that, so I was a little nervous because these were guys, you know, that is not somebody I've related to. I mean, you know, as you know, I grew up in the projects. I grew up poor. Not that these people did. Some of them did. But it was a very different crowd than what I was used to. And it was about, I think, 1,500 or 2,000 people there. I mean, it was the whole union, and it's a once-a-year state union. So I did do this talk. So, you know, I was a little hesitant. You know, here I am, an Italian guy getting up on stage in, you know, a $1,500 Italian suit, talking to these guys that are showing up from everything from T-shirts to overalls to suits. I mean, it was very interesting. But having said that, the talk went really well, and apparently they really liked me. So when I got, and the reason I'm telling you this is because now I had an in with all the union guys, you know, from all these different, you know, like I said, construction, plumbing, electrical, all of that. And I had this idea for YDC. The idea was this. I went to the president, and then he went to all the local chapters and talked to them. I had an idea for these kids that when they get out of YDC, they were able to pick up a trade. Think about this, a trade. If they wanted to be a carpenter, if they wanted to be an electrician, or they wanted to be a plumber, construction, any one of those trades that the union, okay, entails, that they could intern with them for free. So basically, they could intern with these people for free and learn a trade that would really give them some sort of, obviously, a job, some sort of career, and a new outlook on life. It was unprecedented. So the president of the AFL-CIO went to all the local chapters in the state of Connecticut, and every one of them unanimously, okay, hands down, said we would do this. It was so exciting because I reported directly to the governor on this. He loved the idea. So I went back, and now there was a meeting being set up with all of the heads of the department for YDC. Not the people actually there, but actually the managers, the supervisors for the entire, all the different aspects of this prison for kids. And I don't remember how many at the table. All I do remember was there was probably about 10 or 12 of them sitting at the table. So I'm all excited about this. It was unprecedented. These kids are going to be able to learn a trade, okay, coming right out of prison, okay, and have a future. It was just so exciting. So I couldn't wait to tell these guys and women this. So I get there, and I'm sitting at the head of the table, and I tell them about the whole program. I'm very excited. I'm waiting for them to embrace this with open arms. And one guy who was, I think, the head, or the top supervisor, looked at me and said, "We're not going to let this happen." Just like that. We're not going to let this happen. And I was stunned. And I said, why is that? We're just not going to let this happen. He gave me absolutely no reason, okay? And he said, we don't have to give you a reason. We're just not going to let this happen. I was like slammed and could not believe what I was listening to. An opportunity that was unprecedented in the country. Think about this. A kid coming out of prison, a repeat offender that would be under the wings of any one of the AFL-CIO guys and women that are in charge to learn a trade and have a career and have a future. And they turned it flat down. I went to the governor, and I said, well, before I said that, I said, do you understand that I'm here under the auspices of the governor directly, that he appointed me to this position? He said, we don't care. I was like stunned. Now, I'm not a politician. I know a lot more about politics now than I ever did, but I'm not a politician. I didn't get it. So I went to the governor and told him, and the governor looked at me, and he said, Steve, I'm not going to go up against the union. Not the union that I was dealing with, but whatever their union is. Now, I want to make it very clear that this is not about the unions. The union didn't get involved. They weren't even approached. So this is not bad-mouthing or saying anything negative about the unions. He said he knew that if he opposed it, that they would run to the union and complain, and somehow there would be conflict, and he didn't want to deal with that. He said, Steve, just go in there, do the best you can. Basically said, take the check, do the best you can. And at that point, I said, there's nothing I can do, Governor. That was my plan. It was a good plan. Okay, I can't revamp the whole educational system. You know, I'm not an educational administrator, and that was it. And it was good money, but I turned it down, and that was it. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I got to talk about, why is it that in this country there are certain teachers, okay, certain schools that flourish, okay, and I'm going to go back to Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut. That school, the high school in Hartford, Connecticut, some years ago lost their entire accreditation. They were not being federally funded at all. They got no money. And that's really hard to do. Having worked directly with Jan Pascal, who was the Region 12 representative and a personal friend of the president, so we had carte blanche everywhere we went, okay? They grew up together in high school. Working for her, I mean, it was like, for a school to lose accreditation and not get federal funding, it has to be pretty bad, and Hartford High School did. And then they hired this principal that went in there, and it's a very bad area if you don't know Hartford. And again, these things go viral. They go national, these television shows, because they go on YouTube and they go on Facebook. Okay, so a lot of people will see this. So why is it that this principal went into this school and turned the entire school around and got the accreditation back? I'll tell you why. Because he created, okay, first of all, he had a relationship with a million kids. He was very accessible. That's number one. Number two is he created after-school programs, not one, not two, but I don't know how many dozens of after-school programs, okay? Not just for sports, but it covered sports, it covered music, it covered art, it covered just about every aspect of what a child, a high school kid, would want, okay? So in other words, whatever their personality was, whatever their interest was, he found that out, and he created after-school programs and got the community involved. He turned that entire school around. The guy became, I wish I could remember his name, sorry. Okay, I'm really bad at that. I should get better. Okay? He turned the entire high school around, and the school got their accreditation back. It was amazing in an inner city school, okay, where many of them failed. And they talk about many inner cities, and I grew up in the inner cities, you know that, the Spanish Harlem and the projects of Brockton, okay? So, I mean, I couldn't even read and write at going into the third grade. I stayed back in the third grade because when I went to Massachusetts, and in third grade, you're supposed to be able to read and write, and I couldn't do that. I grew up in Spanish Harlem, I didn't speak Spanish, and most of the kids did, and we were not educated well. But why is it that They could turn that school around in an inner city like Hartford, Connecticut, where every gang in the world is represented there. There's all kinds of school violence, okay? There's a lot of poor areas in the city of Hartford, all right? And why could he do that? It's very simple, all right? I'm going to give you another example of what didn't work. There's a guy that was given almost $100 million. It was an experiment for the city of Chicago, where our president comes from, okay? And he was given almost $100 million for a project, building science rooms, I mean, the best technology, putting money into that school, and trying to turn that school around. Just like an inner city school in Hartford, Connecticut, there wasn't a much bigger difference demographically between the two schools. Spent almost $100 million on one school district, okay, and it totally failed. By the way, that guy now is the Secretary of Education for the United States of America. Not bad-mouthing a guy. I don't know what good thing he's done, okay? All I know is that it was given $100 million for an experiment to try to turn a school around, and throwing money at it didn't help. That's my point. And now the guy is the Secretary of Education appointed by the President of the United States for the country. Money did not help that. What helped it was what that guy did in Hartford, Connecticut. And before I get into the next part of my talk, okay, I'm going to tell you one other thing. When I traveled for 5-6 years with Jan Pascal, who was, again, the Region 12 representative for the United States Department of Education, there's only 12 of these people in the country, if you don't know this, and they're appointed by the president. They're presidential appointments. Besides that, she was the first one in history to ever be appointed to such a high-level position that came directly from the schoolroom. She was a school teacher. It was great. She was amazing. And I traveled with her 2 or 3 days a week for almost 6 years. So, and I saw the great things that she accomplished and we accomplished together. One of the things she did, and one of her theories was, we're going to ask the kids directly what they want. Adults, you know, I don't believe in kids making decisions for themselves, depending on age, okay? But in terms of knowing what kids want, there are a lot of adults out there, especially in the educational world, that think they know what they want, but they don't, all right? And Jan's idea was to do a survey. You know, they'll do a survey of 500 or 1,500 people, okay? And that'll be the statistic for a national survey. It'll be classified as a national survey. We did thousands. What we did is we had a list of questions. And if they were too young to understand them or read them, they were read for them. We interviewed thousands. We gave the survey to thousands of kids. Remember, I was in 100 schools, school districts over that 6-year period with Jan. So we saw thousands of kids. We talked to thousands of kids. So there wasn't a 500 statistic program. It was thousands. And the questions, there were about 20 questions. K through 12, we did this. There is no survey that has been done like it in the United States to this day. I still have the results, and I will tell you what the results are. What did they want? What did they want more out of education? Okay? And they varied from K to 12, but there were three things that were totally consistent across the board that all ages K through 12 wanted. One, they wanted teachers more hands-on. That was one of the questions. What do you want more from your teachers? More hands-on was the question. They answered it different ways depending on age, but what does that mean? More engaged teachers with their kids, just like that principal did in Hartford, Connecticut. Two, they wanted parents more involved. Again, answered differently, but the results were the same. They wanted parents involved in their education. And I know that's very difficult, for a lot of parents, because both parents are working in the household, okay, and they got a lot on their plate. But that was the second thing. Think about this, thousands of kids. And trust me, this wasn't just the East Coast. Even though Jan Pascal was Region 12, because of her influence with the White House and the president, we went all over the country. We spoke from here all the way to the Delta of Arkansas, okay, schools out there. I mean, that's forget about it, that's way out there. I've never been in a place like that in my life. But anyway, and the third thing, again, they wanted more teachers hands-on, they wanted parents involved in their education, and the third thing is they wanted more after-school programs. They wanted more activities. Those three things were synonymous across the board. Across the board, from here to Arkansas, all over the country, we did thousands of these kids' surveys, and that's what they came up with. And that's exactly what that teacher did, that principal did. Here's a school that had no federal funding. It's not about more money, okay? Teachers pay, that's a whole other story. One day I'll talk about that. okay? But it wasn't about more money for the school. It was about getting engaged after school programs, okay, and getting parents involved, which he did too. He made a great effort to do that. But even if that didn't happen, which a lot of them, it didn't happen in the inner cities, okay, was that they had 1 million after school programs, and he was very big on getting teachers involved and engaged with their students, and he turned that whole school around. He used it. He wound up lecturing around the country. They used it as a model for the country, and it's kind of like fizzled out. So I wanted to make that very clear on why we're failing in education. Kids aren't any less intelligent, and teachers are not any less intelligent, and they get trained very well. So why is it that we're failing across the board in so many different areas? This is why, and it doesn't require more money. It requires those 3 things: parent involvement, teachers being engaged in their students, okay, and after-school programs, things for these kids to do after school. Okay, so I just wanted to make that very clear, and it's worked and it's proven. Next thing I want to talk about is terrorism. As you know, this is not a subject. Again, if your kids were watching this, please don't let them watch this part of the show. All right. As you know, I am in the FBI's Vice President of Community Outreach for New England Citizens Academy Alumni Association. Okay. I set up conferences with the FBI, Secret Service, Department of Homeland Justice, Department of Homeland Security, you know, all these different agencies on anti-school violence and those type of things, active shooter. Okay, so this subject is very, very important, and the purpose of this subject is not to pinpoint anybody, okay? I am going to talk about Islamic terrorism, okay? I don't want to be persecuted for it. I don't want people to think that I'm targeting anybody, or I'm a prejudiced guy, or I'm Islamic phobia. I'm none of those things. Remember where I grew up. I thought I was Puerto Rican until I was 8 because my mother never told me I was Italian. I didn't grow up like that. I accept everybody for what they are and what they do. So I want to make that very clear before I talk about this, okay? So the purpose of this subject is to be vigilant, okay, and keep your eyes open, and if you see something, say something. I know that's a very important term, but I'm going to make that very clear on exactly what that means. I'm going to give you an example of that. I have a friend in Concord, New Hampshire. I don't want to list names. He's a prominent businessman and a longtime student of mine. He called me a couple of weeks ago and he said, "Steve, I'm in Concord, New Hampshire right now." Okay, he called me right afterwards. Right in a shopping area in Concord. Not the mall, but a big plaza like the mall. A lot of strip areas in this area. Okay? And he said, I'm watching these guys that appear to be Middle Eastern. I don't know if they were Middle Eastern. That's what he said to me. I'm just telling you exactly what he said. All right? And there's about 5 or 6 of them walking around the parking lots, checking out different areas, and they were all spread out. Then he said they all met in front of one location, and they were talking for a little while. Right after that, a white van pulled up, okay, with a flag hanging out the window. That he's not Arabic, and he doesn't speak any Arabic, but he said it looked like, okay, Arabic or Middle Eastern letters, and it was a black flag. That's all he knew. Again, he's very intelligent. He's a doctor, and I'm only saying that because this is not a conspiracy type individual. And he said the van with the black flag, this was just a few weeks ago, okay, circled the area, and then with the flag hanging out, and then picked up the 5 guys or 6 guys, and then they drove off. He was very concerned about that. He was smart to call me. I immediately called the supervisor, emailed the supervisor for the state of New Hampshire, because I work out of Boston, and Boston handles the New England states, okay? I know him. I emailed him and gave him that information. He thanked me, and he told me to thank the individual that told me that. Hopefully they followed up on that. I know they followed up on that. I'm very confident of that. And there are cameras in that parking lot, so hopefully they got some more information beyond what I could tell them. Okay, last year there was an incident at the Mall of New Hampshire where another guy and a couple of other people were going to all the entrance and exits at the mall taking pictures. When he was approached by the security guard, he said, Oh, I'm here with my family, I'm just taking pictures. Well, you know what? Taking pictures of the entrance and exits of the mall, I don't think so. The security guy called the police, and then that got involved. There are a lot more incidences like that. You know that they are. It's happening all the time. San Bernardino, Orlando, okay? And then if you're watching the news at all, every single day, every day, there have been multiple, okay, suicide bombings. They have made it very clear that they're in the United States and they're attacking, and they plan on it. They don't want to hide this. They want to make it very, very known that they're going to do this. They want to let us know ahead of time. This is their goal and this is their mission. There's, you know, the three major ones are Hamas, okay, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS, okay? Hamas and Al-Qaeda MO was, you know, send me your money, come here, we'll train you to be terrorists, and then we'll send you out on your missions. ISIS is very different. We don't need your money. They'll take it, they don't need it. They got a lot of money from all the areas that they've taken, from the oil that they've stolen, okay? So they're very well funded and they're very organized, okay? There's Boko Haram, which is claimed to be part of ISIS, and now they're being endorsed by each other because they're doing obviously a lot of major damage too. So every single day I read about something now of hundreds of people, dozens of people getting killed, and we know what's going on in the United States. So my purpose of this talk is not to scare you, but it's so important that you be vigilant, okay, and keep your eyes open and be aware of your surroundings. I'm going to give you exactly, okay, what you should be looking for. How much time do I have? I got time. Okay, I just want you to talk. There's an agency that I read about. It's called Act for America. If you want more information, you can go for Act for America is very well informed. The woman that runs it is the president, is incredibly intelligent, speaks the language, lived in that country, in those countries. She knows a lot about what's going on. One, as she said here, okay, is since 9/11, there have been more than 27,000 terror attacks carried out around the world in the hands of Islamic terrorists. That's what she wrote, okay? Now I'm going to tell you, be aware of the following signs of radicalization. Okay, this comes directly from this agency, okay? I'm going to read them, exactly what you should be looking for. A person with sudden, ostentatious insistence on religious ritual, especially in secular context. Demand for prayer rooms where no other religion has them. 2, a withdrawal from social interaction with women and disapproval of feminine dress. 3, someone who may adapt traditional Arab dress or abruptly, suddenly, I said, remember it says suddenly, okay? Someone may adapt traditional Arab dress and abruptly abandon it as not to attract attention. Suddenly was not the correct word. So they've always worn that kind of dress, and now suddenly they're not doing it, okay? Very important to observe that. An individual may forbid or avoid music, okay, called jihadi material. Withdraw from contact with non-Muslims or Muslims who are not extremists. A person who may be single-issue conversation, vocal hatred of the West and Israel. Very important. Attempt to travel to troubled regions or misleading, okay, as to where they've been. That's very important too. Oh, they're all important. Someone who suddenly becomes withdrawn, expresses increasing anger and disillusioned views of America, our policies, or society. A person who suddenly starts attending mosques that are known to preach radical and jihadist messages. Okay? Now, my point, again, in all of this, is not about Islamic phobia. I know Muslims that I'm friends with, okay? Middle Eastern people that I'm friends with that study in our schools. Okay, this is not about that. This is about the reality of what's going on. Again, San Bernardino, 1.5 million people go out and buy guns that they don't know how to use. Okay? What I'm saying to you is this. We don't want to walk around with our heads in the sand. They're here. They've made it known they're here. There have been many incidences now, not just throughout the world, but here in the United States. They openly preach that their goal is to attack and dismantle the West and instill Sharia law. This is their goal. Go on the websites. Look at what some of them do. Look at some of the radicals that instill Sharia law, okay? And the things that they do and how bad it is. Everything from stoning young girls for reasons beyond my imagination to death. They even will use stones that, I'm not saying all of them do this, okay? These are the things that I see. These are the radical ones. These are the radical ones that are extremists, okay? They'll even go on to the point where they use stones, okay, of a certain size so that it creates more pain before death. I mean, these are the things I know about. These are the meetings and the conventions that I go to. I want to know what's going on. I got 3 boys, okay, that I'm of a certain age. I don't know what my lifespan is, all my wife's, but I have 3 boys that are young. And you have children or you have grandchildren or people that you care about. It's here. It's not going away, and we need to be vigilant, and you need to report things that you see. Please. Thanks for listening, okay, and have a great life.